Mayoral candidate will be on the general election ballot despite an attempt to block her candidacy by an ally of current Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who is
a mayoral candidate being challenged. The saga surrounding embattled South Suburban politician Tiffany Henyard.
In a stunning twist, Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dothan and supervisor of Thornton Township, seems to be facing an escalating crisis that threatens to unravel her once promising political career. Once hailed as a groundbreaking figure, Henyard was celebrated for shattering barriers as a young, dynamic black woman rising to the top of local government, with many viewing her as a trailblazer in leadership. However, the narrative surrounding her leadership has drastically shifted, and she now finds herself at the epicenter of a maelstrom of controversy, mired in scandals, political chaos, and public outrage. What once appeared to be a promising tenure has rapidly deteriorated under the weight of numerous challenges. Reports have surfaced of frequent missteps in leadership, including poor attendance at crucial meetings and allegations of mismanagement. The mayor's office has been rocked by a series of lawsuits, further exacerbating her political woes. In addition, Henyard is now facing the scrutiny of federal investigations into potential financial misconduct, with critics questioning her handling of municipal funds and resources. As the public's trust erodes, Henyard's credibility and political future hang in the balance. The whirlwind of controversies, ranging from legal battles to ethical concerns, has created a perfect storm that many feel may ultimately lead to the collapse of her political career. Once seen as a rising star with a bright future, the path ahead for Tiffany Henyard now seems uncertain, as she grapples with the overwhelming pressure of mounting scandal and public disillusionment. The walls appear to be closing in, and her ability to navigate these turbulent waters is now being called into question.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard was not at the hearing here today. Neither was her attorney, and she was not made available for a comment.
In the latest and most talked about developments, Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dothan and supervisor of Thornton Township, has come under intense scrutiny after she skipped not one, but two critical meetings earlier this week, one in Dothan and another emergency session in Thornton Township. Henyard's explanation for her absence was that she had received credible threats against her and other officials, an excuse that initially seemed plausible. However, doubts quickly arose when it became clear that no one else had heard about these so-called threats. Dothan trustee Jason House, who presided over the village board meeting in Henyard's absence, confirmed that neither he nor the board had been informed of any such threats. This raised alarm among both residents and trustees, with many now accusing Henyard of using the threat claims as a convenient excuse to avoid accountability in the face of mounting challenges. As both Dothan and Thornton Township continue to spiral deeper into dysfunction, the absence of their mayor at such critical moments has become a flashpoint for public frustration. At the Dothan meeting, the community's anger was palpable. Residents filled the room, eager to voice their frustrations, even though Henyard was nowhere to be found. Many directed their ire specifically at the mayor, accusing her of abandoning her responsibilities when leadership was needed most. One particularly blunt resident took aim at Henyard, saying, "I once heard you quote Dr. King about being the dream. No, Tiffany, you are a nightmare." Another resident urged, "Come to work, sis," highlighting the perception that Henyard's absence wasn't just physical, but symbolic of a deeper, systemic breakdown in leadership. The situation is dire, and the stakes have never been higher. Both Dothan and Thornton Township are in desperate need of stability, and Henyard's continued failure to show up only exacerbates the crisis. The residents' grievances reflect a growing sense of disillusionment, as they watch their local government fall apart under her watch. Things took an even more troubling turn during the emergency session in Thornton Township, which had been called to address critical issues, including the township's lack of an insurance policy. This absence of insurance has already led to the shutdown of essential services, including senior transportation and various community programs, leaving vulnerable residents without access to basic resources. The situation has left many struggling, and the township's inability to function effectively has become a central point of contention. Trustee Chris Gonzalez, who had called the meeting, waited for 15 minutes for Henyard to arrive, but she never showed up. Without her presence, the meeting could not proceed, leaving the township in a state of limbo and further highlighting the dysfunction plaguing the administration. Gonzalez, visibly frustrated, later commented, "We're on a toll road of chaos right now, and unfortunately, the residents are the ones who are paying the tolls." The township's already strained resources are now stretched even thinner, and the residents are bearing the brunt of Henyard's absence. In both Dolton and Thornton Township, the frustration is growing, and Henyard's no-show has only added fuel to the fire. As these two municipalities continue to struggle with critical issues, her lack of leadership is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. What was once a promising political career now seems to be unraveling before the eyes of the very people who once supported her. The stakes are high, and time is running out for Henyard to restore public trust, or risk losing it entirely. As the pressure on Tiffany Henyard intensifies, many are beginning to wonder why she continues to dodge these critical meetings. Some speculate that the embattled mayor is trying to avoid facing the mounting consequences of her alleged mismanagement, knowing that the end of her political career may be drawing near. Henyard's absence at key moments is increasingly seen as a deliberate attempt to escape accountability, as her leadership appears to be unraveling under the weight of several troubling issues. At the heart of the turmoil is the ongoing federal investigation into Henyard's alleged financial misconduct, a probe that has been quietly underway for several months. Insiders suggest that the investigation could soon lead to formal charges, with some even speculating that indictments may be imminent. While Henyard has yet to be formally charged, the mere fact that a federal inquiry is probing her actions speaks volumes about the seriousness of the situation. But the federal investigation is just one part of a much larger web of controversy that has engulfed Henyard's administration. The financial mismanagement and questionable spending practices tied to her leadership have been a constant source of public concern. A long list of troubling incidents continues to surface, each one adding fuel to the fire. One of the most glaring examples of Henyard's alleged mismanagement is the unaccounted-for funds in Thornton Township. As the financial scandal deepens, her office has been unable to provide clear explanations for significant discrepancies in the township's budget, further eroding public trust. Henyard's lavish taxpayer-funded trips have also come under intense scrutiny. Critics have pointed to these expenses as evidence of a leader more interested in living it up on the public dime than in addressing the serious challenges facing her constituents. The lavish nature of these trips stands in stark contrast to the dire financial straits the municipality finds itself in, leaving many to question her priorities. Perhaps the most damning revelation came from a recent review of Dolton's general fund by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. The audit uncovered a negative balance of over $3.5 million, an alarming deficit that suggests a severe breakdown in financial management. Even more concerning was the discovery that a staggering $40,000 was spent in a single day on Amazon purchases, none of which could be accounted for. This revelation has left residents and critics alike shaking their heads in disbelief, questioning how such egregious spending could have occurred without any oversight. If these allegations and mismanagement don't scream failure of leadership, it's hard to know what does. Henyard's continued absence from critical meetings and the increasing scrutiny of her financial practices suggest a growing realization that her administration is in freefall. The once promising career of a young, trailblazing leader is now overshadowed by a cloud of controversy and scandal. As the walls close in, Henyard's failure to address these issues head-on only further damages her credibility, and it's becoming increasingly clear that the road ahead may be paved with legal and political consequences.
Are off behind me. The doors are locked here, and there's a sign on the building right now that says it's closed. For how long, neither residents nor employees know.
Perhaps the most shocking aspect of Tiffany Henyard's alleged financial mismanagement is the sheer brazenness with which it appears to have occurred. Sources close to the ongoing federal investigation have revealed alarming allegations that township employees are coming forward with claims of financial irregularities that have raised serious questions about the handling of taxpayer funds. According to these employees, money earmarked for essential community programs has mysteriously vanished, leaving residents wondering where their resources have gone. One employee, speaking on the condition of anonymity, shared troubling details about the practices within the township. This individual claimed that invoices for certain expenses were either incomplete or, in some cases, outright fabricated in an apparent effort to cover up the true destination of the missing funds. It feels like every time we ask for transparency, we hit a brick wall, the source said, adding that efforts to obtain clarity on how the money was spent have been met with resistance at every turn. These allegations have only served to deepen public distrust, as the community grows increasingly skeptical about the leadership and financial stewardship of Henyard's administration. The mounting concerns have led many residents to demand a full audit of both Thornton Township and Dolton's finances. Calls for transparency have grown louder, with people questioning how their tax dollars are being managed or mismanaged under Henyard's leadership. This public outcry has put immense pressure on the mayor, but it also reflects a broader sense of disillusionment with the way the township and village have been run. Adding fuel to the fire, residents have begun to worry that Henyard's legal troubles are now directly impacting the ability of the township to function effectively. With multiple lawsuits piling up on all sides, critics argue that the mayor's focus has shifted away from governing and towards self-preservation. She's using every resource available to fight for herself, not for us, said one frustrated resident during a recent town hall meeting. This sentiment has been echoed by Thornton Township employees, who feel that the town's leadership is no longer addressing the basic needs of the community. According to these employees, essential township operations have been neglected as Henyard becomes increasingly preoccupied with her mounting legal battles. Of particular concern are the programs that were designed to support some of the township's most vulnerable residents, seniors, children, and low-income families. Many of these programs, which provide vital services such as senior transportation and community assistance, have ground to a halt due to the ongoing insurance crisis in the township. The lack of an adequate insurance policy has left critical services unable to function, leaving these vulnerable groups without the support they desperately need. The shutdown of these services has caused widespread frustration, as residents who rely on these programs for their daily needs find themselves stranded without resources. With basic services disrupted, legal challenges looming, and a financial scandal threatening to engulf her administration, Henyard's ability to govern effectively is increasingly in question. Public sentiment has turned against her, with calls for accountability growing louder by the day. Her continued focus on fighting off lawsuits and defending her actions rather than addressing the needs of her constituents has left many feeling abandoned and disillusioned. What was once seen as a promising leadership journey now appears to be a cautionary tale of political and financial mismanagement. As Henyard's controversies mount, the question remains, can she turn things around, or has the damage to her political career already become irreparable?
And no comment from Mayor Tiffany Henyard. Voters here will first head to the polls in February for the primary election.
Even
then
Tiffany
the general
Henyard's
mayoral
closest allies are beginning to distance themselves, marking a significant shift in the political landscape surrounding her administration. Insiders have observed a growing rift between the mayor and some of her former supporters, many of whom now view her as a liability rather than a leader. One source close to Henyard's administration candidly admitted that morale within her inner circle has reached an all-time low, with several staff members quietly resigning or refusing to engage with her leadership altogether. This growing discontent within her own team is seen as a stark reflection of the turmoil surrounding her administration. The writing's on the wall, the source said. People are jumping because they don't want to go down with this. This internal disarray mirrors the public chaos surrounding her leadership, signaling that Henyard's once promising career may be crumbling from the inside out. The erosion of Henyard's influence has also sparked a fierce political power struggle within Thornton Township. Trustees Carmen Carlisle and Chris Gonzalez have been actively boycotting meetings in an effort to block Henyard from appointing an ally to a vacant trustee position. Both trustees fear that such an appointment would grant Henyard unchecked power, further consolidating her authority at a time when many believe she is already abusing her position. In retaliation, Henyard has accused Carlisle and Gonzalez of stalling government business, particularly the renewal of the township's insurance policies, which have been a point of contention for months. The back and forth between Henyard and the two trustees has created a complete stalemate, effectively paralyzing the local government. Residents, who are already dealing with the fallout from the township's financial mismanagement and insurance crisis, are caught in the crossfire. The gridlock has left essential services and operations in limbo, with no clear path forward. One trustee even warned that, as a result of the ongoing political turmoil, the township's insurance now costs 3 times as much, yet offers significantly less coverage, putting an even greater burden on taxpayers, who are already struggling to make ends meet. This political deadlock is a stark reminder of how Henyard's leadership, or lack thereof, has led to deep divisions and dysfunction within the very government she is supposed to lead. Instead of uniting her colleagues and governing effectively, her actions have fueled infighting and created an environment where the needs of the community take a backseat to political maneuvering. As the internal power struggles intensify, it's clear that the fallout from Henyard's failures is spreading well beyond her own administration. Residents are left to wonder how much longer the township can function under such dysfunction, while Henyard's own future grows increasingly uncertain.
Others to govern, to provide a way, provide services, and we're not doing that because they're stalling government, gridlocking.
While Tiffany Henyard continues to assign blame to others for the growing turmoil surrounding her administration, her critics argue that she is, in fact, the root cause of the crisis. As her leadership falters, residents have taken to the streets in protest, demanding accountability and calling for her resignation. The anger is palpable, with demonstrators gathering outside Henyard's mother's house to voice their frustrations. One protester, in a pointed statement, likened Henyard's actions to the destruction of a valuable opportunity, an opportunity that many believe has been squandered under her watch. Others, using megaphones, amplified their calls for change, underscoring the widespread public fury that has reached a critical point. The protests are not just a reaction to her failures, but a powerful symbol of the community's growing disillusionment with her leadership. At the same time, the credibility of Henyard's claims of facing threats has also come into question. Dolton's acting police chief, who previously asserted that Henyard had been the target of multiple threats, has been unable to provide any evidence that these alleged threats led to arrests or charges. This raises significant doubts about the veracity of Henyard's claims. Many now wonder if these threats are simply a distraction, a convenient excuse for avoiding responsibility and deflecting attention from her mounting failures as mayor. The lack of tangible evidence of any danger only serves to deepen skepticism among residents, who are increasingly questioning the motives behind Henyard's decisions and statements. In addition to the public outcry, Henyard has recently escalated matters by filing a series of lawsuits. From challenging her removal from the Thornton Township Democratic ballot to suing Dolton trustees for allegedly conspiring against her, Henyard appears to be throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. These legal battles seem to be a last-ditch effort to maintain control and divert attention from the growing list of controversies surrounding her administration. However, the sheer volume of lawsuits raises an important question: who is footing the bill for these legal battles? Lawyers, as anyone familiar with the costs of litigation knows, do not come cheap. Residents are left wondering whether their tax dollars are being used to fund Henyard's personal vendettas and legal defense, rather than being spent on the essential services and programs that the community so desperately needs. The possibility that taxpayer money is being funneled into a series of lawsuits driven by Henyard's own political survival, rather than the well-being of her constituents, has only fueled the anger and frustration among the public. With each new legal filing, Henyard's credibility continues to erode, and her ability to govern effectively is called into greater question. While she continues to wage a personal battle in the courts, the people of Dolton and Thornton Township are left wondering if their mayor's focus is truly on serving their needs, or if it's entirely consumed by her own self-preservation. As the situation spirals further out of control, the residents are left to bear the cost of a leadership that seems more concerned with protecting itself than with addressing the growing challenges of the community.
Our hesitation is that if there's a person in there that will just say yes to everything, I mean, it will set us back.
Despite the mounting controversies and widespread calls for her resignation, Tiffany Henyard is still desperately clinging to power. The embattled mayor of Dolton and supervisor of Thornton Township is now fighting to get back on the ballot for the position of Thornton Township supervisor, following her humiliating loss at the Democratic caucus in December. The loss was a devastating blow to Henyard, both politically and personally. According to reports from those who attended the caucus, Henyard was met with chants of goodbye as she was publicly denied the nomination, a clear signal that her support within the party had evaporated. In the wake of this defeat, Henyard has insisted that voter suppression was to blame, accusing State Senator Napoleon Harris, who chaired the caucus, of deliberately locking her supporters out of the venue. She claims this tactic was designed to prevent her from securing the nomination and to hand the race to her opponents. However, critics argue that her defeat was far from the result of any coordinated effort to silence her supporters. Instead, they contend that the outcome was a direct reflection of growing public dissatisfaction with her leadership. After months of scandals, legal battles, and alleged financial mismanagement, many feel that Henyard has lost the confidence of the community. For Henyard, the loss at the caucus has only fueled her determination to regain control. She continues to push for a spot on the ballot, despite the fact that her credibility has been severely damaged. Her insistence on continuing her political fight, even after such a clear rebuke from within her own party, has raised questions about her judgment and priorities. While she focuses on securing her own political future, residents of Dolton and Thornton Township are left to deal with the fallout from her failures as a leader. The fact that Henyard is fighting so hard to stay in power, despite the overwhelming public sentiment against her, speaks volumes about her unwillingness to accept responsibility for her actions. Rather than listening to the voices of those who have grown frustrated with her leadership, she continues to lash out at perceived enemies, blaming others for her political troubles instead of acknowledging the role her own mismanagement has played in her downfall. Ultimately, her failure to recognize the reasons behind her loss at the Democratic caucus may only further alienate the very people she needs to regain trust and support. While Henyard fights to reclaim her position, many in the community are asking whether she can truly lead, especially when her leadership has been defined by scandal, legal battles, and mounting controversy. The fact that she is still clinging to power, despite the clear signals from both her party and the public, only deepens the sense of disillusionment surrounding her administration.
Need some action. Somebody that's actually going to do their job. How about that? Somebody that's come in, work for the people, not themselves, and have pictures all.
In Dolton, the situation is far from improving, and in fact, the village is grappling with a long list of unresolved issues that continue to plague its residents. From unlicensed animal control programs to delays in street plowing, essential services have been left wanting, further exacerbating public frustration. Amidst these ongoing challenges, a particularly troubling issue has come to light: Henyard's alleged late rent payments, which have now landed her in court over an eviction case. Her landlord claims that she owes over 13,000 currency units in back rent and damages. And while Henyard reportedly moved out of the property in October, the legal battle continues to drag on. This latest chapter in her troubled tenure only adds yet another layer of drama and embarrassment to a leadership already marred by controversy. Perhaps the most tragic element of Henyard's situation is the sense of wasted potential. For many, what is most disheartening about her fall from grace is the realization that she had a unique opportunity to do something truly transformative in Dolton. As a young black woman, she held the potential to break barriers and set a powerful example for others. She was the youngest mayor in Dolton's history and the first woman to hold the office, a historic achievement that promised to be the start of something extraordinary. Instead, however, Henyard's time in office has been overshadowed by personal missteps, financial mismanagement, and a growing reputation for prioritizing her own interests over the well-being of the community she was elected to serve. One commenter summed up this sense of lost opportunity, saying, "She had the golden opportunity to do something amazing in Dolton, yet she chose to throw it all away because her ego got in the way. Disgraceful." It's a sentiment that resonates with many in the community, who feel let down by a leader who could have used her platform to uplift and empower, but instead seemed consumed by self-preservation. Henyard's administration, once seen as a beacon of promise and progress, now stands as a cautionary tale of how quickly power can be squandered when personal ambition overtakes the needs of the people. Her rise to power was historic, no doubt. But now it seems that the potential for meaningful change has been squandered in a series of misjudgments and failures. Instead of harnessing her position to create lasting, positive change in Dolton, Henyard appears to have prioritized her own interests, leaving the community to deal with the fallout. The disappointment is palpable, as many residents reflect on what might have been and wonder how much more could have been accomplished if Henyard had remained focused on the people who put her in power, rather than on her own personal battles.
Manipulation. Nobody likes being manipulated, and when you get here, you know that's exactly what's.
Amidst the turmoil surrounding Tiffany Henyard's leadership, new rumors are adding another layer of intrigue to the already complex situation. A leaked audio recording allegedly features trustee Andrew Holmes, caught bragging about inappropriate activities during a trip to Las Vegas. Though the specifics of the conversation remain unverified, the timing of the leak is raising eyebrows. Some speculate that this may have influenced Henyard's decision to skip recent meetings, as the details could potentially create a ripple effect of scandal and political fallout. With the February primary election on the horizon, the stakes are higher than ever, and all eyes are now on Henyard. The question on everyone's mind is, can she turn things around, or is this the beginning of the end for her political career? Her critics are certainly not holding back, and many are counting down the days until she is out of office, likening her leadership to that of a sinking ship desperately trying to stay afloat. With each new misstep, whether it's skipping meetings, facing protests, or being involved in yet another legal battle, the public's patience is running thin. It seems the people have already made up their minds, and they are less than hopeful that Henyard can salvage her political future. The mounting issues have caused a serious erosion of trust, and the prospect of redemption appears increasingly unlikely as time goes on. Looking ahead, the question becomes, what's next for Tiffany Henyard? Will she face legal consequences for the alleged financial misconduct and other controversies that have dogged her tenure? And perhaps more critically, can Thornton Township and Dolton recover from the chaos and dysfunction she has left in her wake? The challenges facing these communities are significant, and it remains to be seen whether they can recover from the damage done under Henyard's leadership. The most pressing concern, however, is who will step up to lead these communities into a brighter future. Henyard's downfall has created a vacuum, and many are wondering who will rise to the occasion and bring much-needed stability and reform. The people are desperate for leadership that prioritizes the well-being of the community over personal gain, and the next leader will have to restore faith in local governance. One thing is certain, the drama surrounding Henyard is far from over. As her political future hangs in the balance, the fallout from her tenure continues to reverberate throughout Dolton and Thornton Township. With every new revelation, every protest, and every lawsuit, it's clear that this story is still unfolding, and the next chapter will likely be even more dramatic than the last. Stay tuned, because this saga is only just getting started.